There are moments on the internet when a single photo changes everything. No scandal, no leaked messages, no shocking confession, just one carefully written post. For most influencers, announcing a pregnancy is one of the happiest moments they'll ever share with their audience. It's usually met with congratulations, excitement, and millions of likes. But when Emilie Kiser announced she was expecting another baby, something very different happened. Instead of celebration, the internet exploded. Within hours, her comment sections were flooded with thousands of opinions. Some people called the announcement beautiful. Others said it gave them chills for completely different reasons. TikTok creators began making videos. Commentary channels jumped in. Reddit threads exploded. And suddenly, one question was everywhere. How did what should have been a joyful pregnancy announcement become one of the most controversial moments on social media? But there was another question, one that almost every debate seemed to come back to. Were people reacting to the pregnancy itself? Or were they reacting to something they still hadn't moved on from? To understand why the internet became so divided, we have to go back more than a year. Because this story didn't begin with a pregnancy announcement. It began with a tragedy that thousands of people still haven't forgotten. Long before headlines and controversy, Emilie Kiser built one of the fastest growing lifestyle brands on social media. Millions of people followed her daily life, morning routines, family moments, fashion, motherhood, travel, home life. Unlike celebrities who exist behind layers of publicists and studio gates, family influencers invite viewers into their everyday lives. Over time, something unusual happens. Followers begin to feel like they know them personally. Psychologists call this a parasocial relationship, a one-sided emotional connection where viewers feel invested in someone they've never actually met. For creators like Emilie, that connection became the foundation of her career. People weren't just watching content, they were watching a family grow, which is exactly why what happened next felt so personal to so many people. In May 2025, Emilie's 3-year-old son, Trig, was found unresponsive after an incident involving the family's backyard swimming pool in Arizona. Emergency responders rushed him to the hospital. Several days later, he passed away. The news devastated not only Emilie's family, but also millions of followers who had watched Trig grow up online. Messages of sympathy poured in from across social media. The pregnancy announcement itself wasn't unusual. In fact, if you removed the name Emilie Kiser from the post, it would have looked almost identical to thousands of pregnancy announcements shared every day. A simple photo, a growing baby bump, a heartfelt caption, and a message filled with hope. Emilie described the pregnancy as a bright light during some of our darkest days. She also explained that, after everything her family had been through, she planned to keep much of this journey private. For many followers, it was a touching message. After losing a child, finding hope again isn't something anyone expects to happen overnight. Some people saw the announcement as proof that healing, while never complete, was finally beginning. But on the internet, not everyone saw it that way. Within minutes, congratulatory comments were competing with criticism. TikTok creators started reacting. Commentary channels uploaded videos. Reddit threads filled with thousands of replies. The announcement wasn't just being discussed. It was being dissected, and one phrase appeared again and again. Too soon, but too soon. According to who? That became the center of the debate. For one group of people, grief has no timeline. Life doesn't stop forever after tragedy. Families continue living. People continue loving. Some eventually choose to have more children. To them, the pregnancy wasn't replacing anyone. It was simply another chapter in a family still trying to survive unimaginable loss. Others completely rejected that perspective. They argued the timing felt difficult to accept because Trig's death was still so fresh in the public's memory. Many weren't reacting to the pregnancy itself. They were reacting to everything they associated with it. And that's an important difference because the internet rarely separates events. Instead, it connects them. Every new headline becomes attached to every old headline, whether that's fair or not. In Emilie's case, the pregnancy announcement instantly reopened conversations that many believed had already ended, not because of anything new that had happened, but because people were still carrying unresolved feelings about what had happened before. And then another detail began circulating online. Just weeks before announcing the pregnancy, Emilie had appeared on Jay Shetty's podcast. During the conversation, she spoke openly about grief, about losing Trig, about trying to rebuild her life, and about forgiving her husband. For many viewers, it was an emotional interview. For others, the timing became another source of speculation. Some online users wondered whether the interview had prepared the public for the pregnancy announcement. It's important to be clear here. There is no verified evidence that the interview was part of any coordinated strategy. That idea came entirely from online speculation after the pregnancy announcement. But once a theory begins spreading online, it often becomes part of the conversation, regardless of whether there's evidence to support it. That's one of the internet's biggest contradictions. Questions spread much faster than answers, and emotional stories spread faster than either. As reactions continued pouring in, another criticism started appearing. Not about the pregnancy, not even about the tragedy, about something much bigger. Family influencing itself. Critics argued that when creators build careers by sharing their personal lives, audiences naturally become invested in major life events. Supporters pushed back immediately. They argued that following someone's content doesn't create ownership over their private decisions. Watching a family online doesn't make strangers part of that family. Those two viewpoints have existed for years, but Emilie's announcement brought them crashing together in one moment. Should audiences simply congratulate her and move forward? Or is it reasonable for people to question public decisions made by someone whose career has been built in public? Neither side was changing its mind, and with every reaction video, every stitched TikTok, every Reddit thread, the debate only grew louder. Ironically, while Emilie had asked for privacy in her announcement, the internet was paying closer attention than ever before. Not because everyone disliked her, but because everyone seemed to be asking a different question. Some wanted accountability, some wanted compassion, some wanted answers. And some simply wanted to understand how a family moves forward after experiencing something so devastating. That's when it became clear. This wasn't really a conversation about pregnancy anymore. It had become a conversation about forgiveness, about public judgment, about whether grief should have a timeline, and about whether people on the internet are capable of allowing someone to move forward after a tragedy. Those questions didn't have easy answers, but one thing was becoming impossible to ignore. The public wasn't just watching Emilie Kiser's next chapter. They were deciding what they believed that chapter should look like. And that's where this story takes its biggest turn. Because the question was no longer whether the pregnancy announcement was controversial. The real question was, why were complete strangers so emotionally invested in deciding how someone else should heal? That answer reveals something much bigger than Emilie Kiser herself. It reveals how social media has changed the relationship between creators and the millions of people watching them. By the time the reactions finally began to slow down, something strange had happened. The internet wasn't really arguing about a pregnancy anymore. It was arguing about forgiveness. Think about it. Two people could read the exact same announcement and come away with completely different emotions. One person saw hope, the other saw heartbreak. Neither reaction came from the pregnancy itself. They came from everything people were carrying into that moment. That's what made Emilie Kiser's announcement different from almost every other influencer pregnancy reveal. It wasn't judged on its own. It was judged against a tragedy that many people still hadn't emotionally processed. And that's why the backlash happened so quickly. Not because everyone agreed, but because everyone believed they already knew the story. For some viewers, this was a family trying to rebuild after unimaginable loss. For others, the loss was still so raw that any celebration felt impossible to separate from what had happened before. Those two perspectives were never going to meet in the middle, and social media only amplified that divide. Algorithms don't reward quiet conversations. They reward emotional ones. Every reaction video generated another reaction. Every opinion inspired another opinion. Before long, the discussion wasn't even about Emilie anymore. It became a much bigger conversation about family influencers. For years, creators have invited millions of people into their homes. Audiences have watched weddings, pregnancies, births, birthdays, vacations, even ordinary mornings. That kind of content creates something powerful. People stop feeling like viewers. They start feeling like they're part of the family's journey. But when something tragic happens, that emotional connection changes. Support can quickly become scrutiny. Empathy can become expectation. And suddenly, complete strangers feel emotionally invested in decisions that don't belong to them. That's exactly what happened here. Some people believed Emilie deserved privacy. Others believed that because so much of her life had been shared publicly, public discussion was inevitable. Neither side disappeared. They simply became louder. And that's when the biggest question from the beginning of this documentary finally has an answer. Why did Emilie Kiser's pregnancy announcement spark such a massive backlash? Because it was never just a pregnancy announcement. It became a symbol. For some, it symbolized hope after unimaginable grief. For others, it reopened painful questions they felt had never been resolved emotionally, even if the legal process had concluded. Those are two completely different ways of looking at the same moment, and that's why the internet became so divided. Whether you agree with Emilie's decisions or not, one fact remains: no one outside that family truly knows what healing looks like for them. Grief doesn't follow a schedule, it doesn't ask permission, and it doesn't look the same from one family to another. At the same time, when someone's life is shared with millions of followers, public reaction becomes almost impossible to avoid. That's the reality of social media today. The more personal the content, the more personal the audience feels. And perhaps that's the lesson this story leaves us with. Not just about Emilie Kiser, but about the internet itself. Every major life event is now experienced in two ways. First, by the people actually living it, and then by millions of strangers trying to interpret it through a screen. Those two experiences are almost never the same. Maybe that's why this story resonated with so many people. Not because everyone agreed, but because everyone brought their own beliefs about grief, forgiveness, privacy, and accountability into the conversation. As for Emilie, she has said she intends to prioritize her family's privacy as they prepare to welcome another child. Whether she chooses to share more of that journey or step away from the spotlight is ultimately her decision. But one thing is certain: the debate surrounding her announcement revealed something much bigger than one influencer. It revealed just how difficult it has become to separate public content from private lives. And perhaps that's the real story, not the pregnancy, not the backlash, but the complicated relationship between creators and the audiences who feel they've grown up alongside them. If someone has shared years of their family life online, where do you think the line should be between public discussion and personal privacy? And should that line change after a tragedy?